You're listening to Short Inspirations from Ralph. Exposed to the Elements, Part 1. When Adam and Eve, and therefore mankind, decided to go their own way so long ago, when they decided they could do this thing without God, thank you very much. Not only was this thing called sin introduced to the world, but something else happened that we can easily miss or not notice that much. Adam and Eve decided to hide from God and to cover themselves. Listen to this. They were suddenly aware that they were unprotected, vulnerable, defenseless and lonely. They were exposed to the elements. They realized they could be harmed and damaged without the closeness of their God. And I believe they were absolutely terrified, extremely fearful. There was nothing there, no one to protect them anymore. There was a cold wind blowing of exposure to all or anything that would want to take advantage of them. It was like this blanket of warmth and love and protection had been lifted from them. From that moment onward, mankind was cursed from the implications and consequences of wanting to go their own way. They had the curse of sin, and they had to deal with two things: the enemy within and the enemy outside. It really was a precarious state that we ended up in. When I talk about the enemy within, I'm talking about the state we're in ourselves. We have a limited time on this earth. We are hurtling towards old age and death, and pain is part of our journey. Sweat, toil, sickness, mental and psychological struggle, temptations, yielding to temptations, toxic shame and guilt, and living with constant failure. Then there are the monsters in our world, I would call them. That is those who are wanting to exploit and dominate and abuse and take advantage of other people. They seem to be everywhere. And they are inspired by or come from the devil himself, the father of lies, Jesus called him. And in John 10:10, Jesus says, a thief has only one thing in mind. He wants to steal, slaughter, and destroy. This is a very dark and gloomy picture that I've painted with regard to the plight, the dilemma of mankind. But even after all of this, something astonishing took place. God, in his love, decided not to leave us alone. He didn't go off to another galaxy somewhere and say, oh well, that was an experiment, didn't really work, I'm off, and leave us alone. His continual love for and running after his created human beings was amazing and overwhelming. And that's what biblical history, the whole Bible, is all about. In fact, the whole of history up until this moment is all about our God's love for us. And we can see the heart cry of God in Genesis after man had hidden themselves, Adam and Eve, when he said, where are you? And it wasn't an accusing statement. It was a cry from the heart and soul of our God for his creation, for his people. And he loved them. He, even in their cursed state, he clothed them. He looked after them. He gave them crops and people and children. And this even happened to Adam and Eve's son Cain, who had murdered his brother Abel. Even though there was incredible restriction to that man's life, he built cities, he took on a wife and had children and had crops and still had a God-blessed life despite the fall. And in the middle of our own gloom, our own dark and gloomy lives, there is hope. There is this loving God who is saying, I want you back again. God bless you today.